Welcome, people of the World Wide Web. So this is the weekend, so it's movie review time as always, and we have Obsession. So in the thumbnail, so you would have seen it. This is kind of the new horror thriller from director Curry Barker. Never seen anything this person has done. I did kind of like the trailer for this movie, so I'm quite interested. You'll know that I'm not the massive horror fan, but I still didn't quite know the background of this. Just it had the One Wish Willie and stuff like this. So essentially this revolves around a set of four friends. You have Michael Johnson as Bear, the main character, Indy Navarrete as Nikki. She's from, the only thing I saw her from is Lois and Clark. She's Sarah Cushing's. Not seen that series, so I don't know. Cooper Thompson as Bear's best friend Ian, and then Megan Lawless as Sarah. So you have these four friends kind of all working at Sarah's dad's music store, and kind of all had suffered some issues within their life and something like that. And it's kind of, they've come to a nexus and something, and essentially it is Bear likes Nikki. In between a kind of weird, in between a kind of very traumatic day, he decides to buy her a gift. He buys her this magic gift called a One Wish Willie. In between giving it to her, the night doesn't necessarily go as planned. As she goes into a house, he breaks it and says he wishes that like she basically loves him, thinks the world of him, and then basically this causes her to become obsessed. But there's a little bit of a twist in there, and I did really like it. Nothing after the credits as far as I was aware. So we'll put the spoiler review warning up and we shall get into it. So yes, so as I said, the movie starts, you have Bear, the main character. I think his name is like Bradley or something, but Bear's obviously some nickname that they've given to him. He essentially is in a restaurant or in a diner, as they have in America, with his best mate Ian and some lads, and he's trying to kind of figure out the way to tell Nikki that he actually cares about him and cares about her, for a long time. Kind of rehearse it. His mate's not really being very helpful, doesn't like he'd be kind of the good with the ladies type, but he's thrown his 3 cents in, and obviously they do this like games night every Wednesday, and obviously he's kind of big brain, and Ian's like, well, don't do it tonight, you'll ruin it, blah 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 blah. He goes home. Unfortunately, when he goes home, he finds out that his cat has died. He lives in the house that his grandma had, and she died recently, unfortunately. And then basically it's he clears it up, doesn't really want to go out, sobs, basically having a very hard time. Nikki calls him, even not Sarah, basically says, oh yeah, we really need you out. He's not very forthcoming, keeps a lot of stuff hidden in. And then it ends up her basically saying she's given her 2 weeks notice at the music store and she's going to leave, and he's like, oh, I'm not really going to spend to see her. She says in the conversation that she's dropped a necklace, or lost a necklace. This is where he goes to the store to get her a necklace, decides that that's not the right place. He sees this One Wish Willie and thinks, oh, that'd be a great idea, kind of a fun novelty gift to give to her. They do the night. The night kind of goes as planned. He takes Nikki home. Ian takes Sarah home. They're kind of talking, and he's trying to kind of use what his mate Ian said, and obviously he's acting very weird. It kind of culminates in her kind of saying like if you like me, now's the time to tell me. He doesn't. She walks off. He kind of is like, oh, I've blown it. As he gets his bag from the back, the One Wish Willie drops out. He breaks it and says, I wish like Nikki loved me, thought I was an amazing thing, best thing in the world. And then obviously you see Nikki kind of standing there, and then she starts acting a little weird, saying that obviously her dad's got cancer, and that she kind of convinces him to go back to his instead. And then but she's acting a little bit weird, and he's like, have you taken some drugs or something? Anyway, kind of culminates in them laying in the bed together. She starts to kiss him, and then gets a bit weird, like, oh, who are you? Blah 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 blah. And then nothing. And she's from this point onwards, very weird. And I will use the weird very much because there is more to this. So kind of they had that night. It is a little weird. The next day kind of they then start dating and stuff like this. And it's kind of, she gets more and more obsessed with him, he said, but not only obsessive that she, he one day he leaves the house and she basically just stands there and basically comes back in a pool of her own mess because she hasn't moved. She sends him food to go to his job, but it's actually the cut up of the cat, and she has a shrine. It's very much, her obsessionist isn't a very rational obsession as far as I would do it. In between this, obviously, her friends start to see weird. They don't really want to hang out because these two are kind of overly obsessive. And during a date that they're having, he's like, "Oh yeah, no, it's been really, really great." He gets a call from his friend and says, Nikki said that dad's dying. It's not true. None of it's true. She's made this all up. He starts to kind of confront her in the restaurant, and she starts to kind of flip out. And he's like, "Okay, gets it that you kind of have to go with what she's saying, or she'll go a bit screw loose." In between this, you kind of learn that Sarah may have had a little bit of thing for him. She's struggling because she can't get into any colleges. And this kind of this then starts leading to a party. Ian says, it was better when just, you're only invited. Nikki's not. It kind of is a bit of a nightmare. Nikki ends up coming and Sarah's already there and they're all sitting together and they do this kind of Jenga game where you pick up a tile of Jenga and it has a thing on it. People end up moving and doing some stuff, and then it gets round to Bears. He pulls out the tile and it says kiss the person to your left, which is Sarah. At that point, Nikki gets up, kind of walks round towards Sarah, pulls Sarah's chair out, stands in front, kisses him, and she's very like chaotically I love him and this is, and it's like, okay, this is very weird. They go back home. He kind of confronts Nikki. Why I'm getting those two confused on the basis, you need to sort this out, stuff like this, and everything else, which then kind of leads them to resting in bed. He then gets a message from Sarah to come meet him, and they can kind of see that Nikki isn't quite right and something's going on. And Sarah's like, we've been friends, here's this letter and stuff. It's so they're in the van talking. She gives the letter to Bear to open and go, "I would do it," and then they're talking and they kind of reminisce about the evening, and she says, "Well, you did pull the tile and it was to kiss the person on your left," and you kind of it has this kind of intense connection between the two of them. And just as you think they're going to kiss, Nikki magically comes at the back, smashes through the window, has a brick in one hand, grabs Sarah's hand and just smashes it to death against this brick. Quite shock, not what you see coming. And then kind of like, you have to help me get rid of the body, which then supposedly they get into the back of the van, then she kind of drives away. Then it culminates of him realizing that the one which will use tries to get another one, manages to get another one, goes to Ian's house and basically wants Ian to do it because he can't do it. You can only do it once. Ian stupidly doesn't believe him, breaks it, and asks for $1 billion. Money starts raining out the roof. He then runs home. When he comes back, Sarah's body is perched in the kitchen on a kind of rocking chair. Nikki is kind of going nuts at him with a gun, shoots Ian as he comes in, and then basically he manages to go to the toilet, takes loads of drugs, and then basically he ends up dying. By him dying, releases the spell. Nikki's then left in this room where her friend's been beaten to death in one room, Ian's shot dead in the other one, and Bear is obviously dead just on the sofa to him, and that's kind of where it ends. I say I really, really enjoyed this movie. I had this as a 6.3. I've kind of really hard to justify this kind of where it sits because I think this is brilliantly shot. I think the Nikki character was portrayed like. There's certain bits where he wakes up, and I didn't mention this, that she's in the corner. Like I've got quite good eyesight. I spotted her right, but how she moves and some of the stuff she does, it's very clever. In between all of this, it is a kind of a good story. I mean, they're not the greatest of friends. They kind of have taken the trope of, you have this bloke who's obsessed with like the hot chick and that's it, and he has a best friend and she kind of has a best friend, and you realise that the best friend is more suited for the main guy, which is kind of where this goes. That's where it kind of was. Ian, who is the best friend of Bear, he's been sleeping with Nikki, and this comes out, and I was like, your friends are douches, and even Nikki should have been more forthcoming with them. But she kind of does say at the very beginning, like, if I like somebody, you wouldn't necessarily know about it. And there's stuff like this that I like. They're not the greatest of friends, and that Sarah was, and Sarah should have been the one you should have been obsessed with in a good way, not in a bad way. be it how it's shot, like there's a few shock bits. The fact that smashing through the window and smashing your head is like quite shock. The fact that obviously when the One Wish Willie is integrated into the story, it is actually just the obsessive personality isn't Nikki. Nikki is kind of trapped inside it, and when she's kind of asleep, when this personality is asleep, Nikki actually talks to him at one point, which I thought was very clever. The reason why I haven't kind of ranked it as high, that even though I think it was quite a small budget, shot very well, as I say, Nikki was great. I think that actress will go on to do some really, really amazing things because she portrayed everything that, she was by far the standout of this. It was a good story. There's a few elements that were kind of missing for the story and stuff like this. And it's great that they came up with this conception and stuff like this. But for me, I wanted a little bit more of an explanation on it because that's what we never got. There was a number you could phone it. He said, which, it says that, that it kind of explained a little bit. But you never kind of got to understand in this instance that because he wanted someone to be obsessed, there's kind of this demon personality that inhabited Nikki. And even like the rationales of like cooking the cat and stuff like this didn't kind of ring true, like, if he said like, come to store and stuff like this, and he was saying no, I would still assume she would still override that. It's like she listens to his commands sometimes and kind of doesn't, and always kind of gets her way. And as I say, they kind of tease at the fact that Nikki's kind of in there, but you kind of don't realise it until near the end. And I would have loved maybe a little bit more elaboration on that. That maybe when he phoned at the number, they said, okay, if that person doesn't love you, then it's somebody else that's in love with you, and then you realise that something was there. The foreshadowing of him taking the drugs, I saw straight away. I imagine that's kind of going to be a Romeo and Juliet kind of ending almost. But I did really, really enjoy it. Have you seen the movie Obessesion? What are your thoughts and feelings? Let me know in the comments down below. I've been Chris from Cypher Signal Screen Time, and I'll definitely see you in the next one.